Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Data Dojo podcast. Today, I am honored to have my CEO, Steve Lucas, the CEO of Boomi, with me. Steve is a seasoned leader with nearly 30 years of experience in enterprise software, holding CEO and senior executive roles at some of the world's leading cloud organizations, including Marketo, Adobe, SAP, and Salesforce. His leadership at prior companies have resulted in multi-billion-dollar acquisitions and strategic investment, showcasing his passion for growth and transformation. At Boomi, I've seen Steve change his vision and with cutting edge technologies like AI to drive innovation and organizational success. Today, we'll dive into his insights on leadership, integrating AI in business, and how he navigates complexities of leading a tech company in this rapidly evolving digital age. Steve, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us today.
So, Gada, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you. This is exciting.
All right, all right. So, like I mentioned, let's just dive in and try to pick your brain on leadership and AI. So, my first question to you is about leadership evolution. So, your extensive career, your leadership style has, of course, evolved, particularly with changes in technology, Gen AI right now. Can you share a specific instance where you had to adapt your leadership style due to the technological change, and maybe give an example of Gen AI?
Well, I mean, there is no better example than right now. I believe that we are in the middle of and have yet to fully realize the next great era coming in the world of technology and software. I believe firmly that the next decade will be the most productive decade in humankind's history.
Yeah.
Largely due to AI. I think that, when I think about software, and then I'll talk about leadership, the thing that's different about AI this time is it can reason and it can hold context.
Yeah.
Software that we've all used to date really doesn't have any context about you or me or the user. It doesn't.
True.
Nor can it reason, right? It's a series of if then else type statements. The ability to reason and speculate outside of a rules matrix.
Yeah.
That's powerful. So from a leadership standpoint, for me, I'm having to adopt my style right now, which is how do we as a company lean in and embrace this new technology? And look, the difference being, it's hard for leaders right now because we don't know how much of it's hype and how much of it is reality. We don't know.
Right.
So if leaders lean in every time, blockchain comes along or something else, you can kind of whipsaw your organization. But our job as leaders as well is to spot the technologies that are enduring that will cause great change. But here's the thing, not every leader will. Not every leader will. But so for me, it's about how do we take a step back, look at our entire organization, consider every potential function that could get impacted positively and negatively by AI. But how do we embrace the positive? How do we move forward and move forward quickly? I do not believe this is a bad bet.
Absolutely. And I think this is significantly different from the prior technological changes like the dot-com bubble or the blockchain era. Like you mentioned, like with AI and Gen AI, it knows you. It's so customized and so contextual. It knows everything about you.
100%. And that's, look, I think for everybody listening, it's just going to get better. It's just going to get smarter, right? We are in the infancy of the AI universe. We haven't even, I'm not even sure matter has been formed post the big bang of AI. But it's just going to get better. And as it gets better, companies have to be prepared. And I am amazed at how few companies are really leaning in right now.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of leaders, and grateful to have you as our leader, because a lot of leaders are scared of AI and feel like adopting AI would disrupt them, or they have like these psychological fears of coming in terms of adapting AI and Gen AI at the pace at which it's moving. So it's great to have you as a leader who believes in its potential fully.
Appreciate that. I'm grateful to be at a company where everyone's leaning in.
Yeah. Well, so moving on, you mentioned how your leadership style has evolved, but in terms of your vision for the company and a company like Boomi, which requires, I feel, a deep understanding of industry as well, because when I go to any event and I say I work at Boomi and people understand it on a high level, but I have to it's like a good conversation starter for me to explain what we do. And it makes me realize that how important industry knowledge is for a company like Boomi. At the same time, having a good understanding of technology and AI. So how do you, when you're planning the vision for growth of Boomi, how do you balance your vision with the practical realities along with these industry changes and limitations? How do you balance everything?
Well, it's a great question. First, you have to look at like what's the collective set of like the universal challenges that all companies face to a certain degree, irrespective of the industry. All companies are struggling with how do I get my applications, my databases, and the consequential APIs associated with those things to talk to each other. How do I get them to talk to each other? We live in a world where we've gone from an unintegrated, fractured landscape on premise to an unintegrated, fractured landscape in the cloud. And for the vast majority of companies, they still haven't shed the on-premise version of their landscape, right? So now the biggest problems I believe facing organizations today are, number one, how do I get my technology to just connect and talk to each other, talk to it, kind of across the board seamlessly? One. Two, how do I solve my hybrid cloud challenges, right? With my legacy on the left hand and the future, right? And then the third is, and oh, by the way, how do I look forward and embrace new technologies like AI?
Yeah.
And Boomi as an integration and automation fabric that stretches across all of those worlds, your legacy on-prem, your current cloud construct, the future needs that you have around AI. Our fabric covers all of that. That's where companies need to invest. That's what they should be thinking about. Look, the reality is that CRMs and ERPs, those are important parts of your technology landscape, but they're not the only parts of your technology landscape. And, especially as you get into nuanced industry, finance, healthcare, and the like, you have so many demands across so many different applications. And then forget the fact that, you have compliance issues on top of that. Again, where is your integration and automation fabric? Where is that? That's what Boomi is.
Yeah. Correct. So when it comes to having a very good understanding of business and industry, when you're planning the vision, how do you balance adopting technology at the pace and as well as making sure that all the things that you mentioned, the legacy and everything is also intact? Because it's hard to make a drastic change with those things.
Well, vision I think the word you used, which is the appropriate word, is balance. Vision must have balance to it, right? It's kind of like, if you look at like Elon Musk, and I'm not necessarily a proponent of things that, he believes in, but, if you look at like SpaceX's vision, right? I mean, he wants to put people on Mars. Now that's a big vision.
Yeah.
But the reality is SpaceX didn't start with like, well, let's just take a shot at Mars, right?
Yeah.
Incremental improvement. How do we reuse rocketry components? How do we land a rocket for reuse? How do we enter orbit, right? They've made progression there. So I think that's a good lesson for vision. For Boomi, it's very similar, and really for any software company, in that when you're thinking about unpacking vision, you obviously have to have that big, I guess it's a Mars shot now, not a moon shot. You have to have that, but you have to provide your team achievable waypoints along the path so that your customers, your partners, your employees, your team members can see, hey, we're making progress towards that Mars shot, whatever that may be. And so for us, our vision, the balance here is, if we were to rotate and just declare tomorrow, oh, well, Boomi is now an AI company and we're not thinking about integration automation, you lose the plot, you lose your base. You can't do that, right? So there is that balance. But the flip side as well is like, if you're not aggressive and relevant and you don't have that Mars shot, you become stale very quickly.
Absolutely. Agreed. So more of thinking of incremental or agile way of adding things rather than just going all out.
Right. But the balance therein is like the incremental achievements. You want to make sure that they're big enough.
Correct.
They need to be big, right? Because it's kind of like anyone can conservatively and incrementally achieve or progress towards mediocrity.
True. Yeah. Very well said. Yeah. So I've seen a couple of your interviews, and you've always emphasized the importance of passion and curiosity in leadership. And I feel that's where the world is heading, because technology in a way has kind of democratized people who can build stuff. Now it's the age of people who are actually curious and taking it till the end, passionate people who are like working rather than just people who talk about it. So the importance of curiosity and passion is even more hyped up right now because most of the skills are kind of democratized to some extent. So how do you, as a leader, cultivate these qualities in yourself and your team during these times?
Well, I hope that first and foremost, when we talk about things like passion and curiosity, I mean, they're, as you know, they're easy words to say.
Correct. Yeah.
But the thing I would encourage anyone listening to this podcast to think about is like, is it easy to spot a curious person? Yeah, it is, based on the questions that they ask, right?
Yeah.
The reality, because you kind of, you meet people, and some people you meet, you're like, wow, they're just super into themselves. All they do is talk about themselves, and they're not even asking any questions about you. That's not a curious person.
True.
That's not a curious person. But then you meet people and it's kind of like, well, are they asking questions about how things work? Or are they asking self-serving questions, trying to lead you to a conclusion? Right. I find that the most powerful people, the ones that change the world, the ones that have radical impact on their own careers, they're the ones that ask questions about how things work, why they work the way they do.
Yeah.
And by the way, I believe that curiosity leads to passion, right? It's like, if you're a naturally curious person, I think that you already are passionate about learning. You're passionate about discovery. Absolutely. And, even at the ripe old age of 51 for myself, I find it frustrating if a day goes by where I just haven't learned something. And by the way, if I haven't learned something, that's my fault.
Yeah.
I haven't asked the right questions. I haven't asked enough questions. But the other side of this, just to get to your question, is like the passion side of it. I believe that all companies have to work towards building a team of storytellers. And here's why. In the world of AI, content's going to be a dime a dozen, right? Like content, for all intents and purposes, you can just type in a thing and generate a bunch of pages of whatever. But what humans do, for hundreds of thousands of years during human evolution, we sat around campfires.
Yeah.
And we told stories.
Yes.
And we scratched pictures on walls. Because we want future generations to know who you are, who I am, right? Correct. And we want to tell stories to each other. And those stories, what connects us is not just the story, but it's the passion behind that. And I find that when I look at that cave art on a wall, when I hear stories of humans that have come before me, there's the connectivity that we all feel is the passion that comes through the story, right? That's the piece. Right. That's the piece that I'm not sure AI can get yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned Elon Musk in previous answer. I feel one ideology I believe I follow is the first principle aspect, like asking the why of anything that you're doing.
100%.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, I mean, I think it's important, like you said, good storytelling, and good storytelling comes with passion and curiosity. So those skills are really great to have in this time where everything else is kind of democratized.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I also listened to your interviews where you mentioned that it's so important to build diverse team. And it's kind of similarly from the previous question, because curiosity and passion and all those skills are not really pigeonholed to people who have technical skills or people who have business skills. It can come from people who have psychology background or different kind of backgrounds, people who have different cultural backgrounds. So the importance of building a strong team comes from diversity, having people of diverse background, not just skill point of view from different cultures. So how do you ensure that diverse perspective are not only represented, but also integrated in like decision making and building your teams?
Well, so to transition into the answer to your question, what I find fascinating is even in the world of AI, if the answer to a question, like the question, what makes for a good general AI model? Well, actually, diversity makes for a good general AI model, right? If you only feed it one data feed, it's only going to have one point of view. So the answer to the organizational question is what makes for a great organization? Well, obviously, diversity does. Diversity of background, appearance, view, all of the above. But here's the thing that organizations forget. It's not just creating opportunity for people to come into your organization, right?
Correct.
It's creating opportunity within your organization for those voices to be heard.
Absolutely.
That's the challenge. I'm at dozens and dozens of CEOs where they pride themselves on the diversity of their recruiting. Well, which is great. What about the diversity of voice internally, right?
Exactly.
And so I think, I look at what you're doing with your podcast as a case in point. That inspires me, right? It's like you are a voice that needs to be heard. You have a point of view, and you are bringing other people with diverse points of view to the table as well. That's how organizations need to be run.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I can vouch where I have witnessed at Boomi is so many people, so many women, so many people from different backgrounds have done things outside of their day job just for bringing this perspective. And Boomi is such a great company which allows you and supports those kind of initiatives. Like I had a chance to host a Women in Data panel, which Boomi supported. And I know my colleague Patricia has done some initiatives like that. So inculcating and supporting those kind of initiatives is really thoughtful, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I'm grateful that you shared that, and we obviously have a lot of opportunity and work to do, but we are certainly making progress. We'll continue to do it.
Yeah, awesome, and then that's how I think even when we look at AI, removing bias is through including more data and train the AI better with different perspectives so that it doesn't have any bias. So we are still there, but like I think we are getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah. So I'm curious now that I know a little bit about more and the audience knows more about your leadership style and your vision. We want to know a little bit more about driving innovation at Boomi and what kind of interesting AI-driven innovations we are currently developing at Boomi. If you want to share something about what we are building for Boomi AI with the audience.
Yeah, well, I think when we think about our vision, so the vision is that we are the integration and automation platform for business. That's our vision.
Right.
And we leave it intentionally broad so that we have a little bit of wiggle room in that.
Yeah.
The strategy underneath that vision is really to take our areas of strength, which are integration, automation, which I already talked about, and expand that strength, integration and automation, into three key areas. One is AI. The others are, data management and API management, but AI.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is it's really quite simple. What is the number one thing that AI needs to be effective? Data. It is the number one thing it needs, right?
Yeah.
Now, diverse data would be helpful, right? But it needs data. And at the end of the day, Boomi is the delivery mechanism for that fuel. That's what we are. Now, we view organizations, relative to AI, there's kind of got to be like 3 or 4 things that they want to do. Number one is I think all organizations are going to want to build their own AI strategy, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to want to augment processes with AI. So that may be retrieval augmented generation or RAG. That may be just having AI fact check something in a process. Great. Boomi is a perfect platform technology that when you have an existing process, interrupting that process at a millisecond level, augmenting that process with AI, and then continuing on your merry way is exactly what Boomi does today. So that's one thing. The next thing they're going to do is build their own AI bots or agents, right? They're going to build chat bots and a long list of other things that are going to happen. And Boomi is a perfect technology to take a data model or an AI model, like a large language model, and hydrate it with additional data so you can ground it in the industry that you're in, context for your business, and the like. Correct. So we know that organizations are going to want to do that. And then beyond that, organizations are going to want these bots or agents or whatever to interact with their other systems. Okay, well, how do you do that in a secure manner? How do you grant authority? How do you revoke authority? An AI agent is no different than a human being from that perspective. I may not want to give an agent access to a particular API or set or data set. So being able to monitor the activity of these AI,
governance,
these AI things, we want to do all of the above. So it's kind of big and broad, but as a perfect demonstration of our commitment to AI, we built and launched 6 AI agents for Boomi. So we are practicing what we preach.
Yes, absolutely. Amazing AI agents, Boomi AI, Boomi GPT, and then the Gen AI governance piece.
That's right.
Yeah, we are moving at a very good pace. I'm excited. You mentioned a little bit about like the governance and security aspect of it, of Gen AI. So that's another question that businesses are facing right now, increasing integration of AI in various aspects of your business. There are a lot of ethical consideration that you need to prioritize to, responsible AI or make fair use of AI. So do you have any thoughts on that? How you plan to integrate that?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost is, we are part of the solution to responsible or ethical AI, which is ensuring that there's a broad data set, that data set has, minimized the bias. You can never eliminate bias in a data set.
True.
That's,
True.
the data comes from humans. It's impossible to eliminate bias entirely, but minimize it as part of that. If you don't, you end up with a heavy bias process or heavy bias model, right? So,
Correct. Yeah.
so I think we're part of that solution. But for us, when it comes to things like explainability, in
Yes.
terms of how Boomi did something with our own
Yeah.
agent, right? We are
Yeah.
working on explainability. So if we recommend, for example, if you're using Boomi GPT and you say, create an employee recruitment process for me.
Mm.
Well, what if the agent or model decides to only do that for a certain zip code?
Correct. Yeah.
What if it decided to do it? That's immediate bias in the model. It's
True.
easy to see,
True.
right? So for us, it's how do we explain that conclusion that we came to and why? So
Yes.
explainability is probably one, not just the data, but it's probably one of the top most critical things you can do to ensure ethics in AI.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, agreed. And I think explainability, we at Boomi are already working on some features to include that. Like, why did we, let's say we are doing, suggesting you an integration process. Why are we suggesting you? Is it based on your historical usage of the
There you
platform?
go.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think explainability is huge and it really adds value. And that's what is missing in current AI, right? Like, if I go to ChatGPT and ask a question, I don't really trust why it suggested me what it did. So
Right.
explainability is a great piece to have. Yeah. Um, I think I have one last question that a little bit tangent from what we discussed is what do you have as advice for future leaders, somebody like me or who are navigating in their mid career or early career who want to get into a leadership role but are at the pivot of like, hey, should I be more technically inclined or should I go into the leadership role? And if I choose to go into the leadership role, you mentioned storytelling, curiosity, passion, but are there anything else that would help somebody who's trying to navigate that phase?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm 51, so I'm pretty sure everybody's early in career compared to me. So I'll provide some counsel from that perspective. My view is like, I think the things that you called out, like curiosity as a case in point, passion,
Mm.
those are foundational elements. If you don't have those things,
Yeah.
then you can be the smartest person in the world and you'll have a job and an opportunity. But if you don't have some of those foundational elements that
Mm.
that drive gravitas and cause people to want to work with you and for
Right.
you, and
Right.
that's tough. I
Yeah.
will, a couple things. Number one, no one, I have very few people, in fact, I can't think of anyone that has ever come up to me and said, you know what, I really regret really digging into technology and understanding it comprehensively. Like no one has ever said that to me. So I would say that on the left hand, leaning into technology, especially, the world that is coming is incredibly important. That's on the left hand. But on the right hand, I would say as well, learning to speak the language of business, right? It's really
True.
difficult if you want to be a leader, if you want to become a CEO as a case in point, and you
Right.
have no idea what actually drives top line profit, what drives bottom line, or sorry, top line,
Correct.
what drives bottom line profit. If you don't know those things, if you don't speak
Yeah.
the language of business, if you can't have a conversation with shareholders or investors,
Yes.
it's tough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say that for me, it's always been a balance. It's like, am I going to lean in fully on technology? No, but I'm
Hmm.
going to be a leader that understands it deeply. Am I going to
Right.
lean in fully on the language of business? Yeah, because I need to speak it and be fluent in it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the thing that benefited me the most, and I would encourage people early in career, is do as many different jobs as you physically can.
Mm.
We tend to get into this thing where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to start in sales and I'm going to do 30 years in sales, and
Yes.
eventually, I might become CEO or something. Yeah, but that's so
Yeah.
narrow. That
Yeah.
is so narrow. So
Yes.
I think it's variety is the spice of life.
Yeah, I completely agree with the last point, especially because in the past 2 years, even though personally, most of the people in my team would agree as well, like even though our job title is data scientist, we've not been doing just that. We've been doing so many more, like being software engineers at time, being product managers at time. So, and that's how your work gets more exciting and, drives you more. And I think that's how it should be. You might have a title, but you're still like steering the ship in whatever the requirements are.
100%. Yeah, variety is a good thing.
Absolutely. All right. I think those were really good questions. And I think the audience got a really good insight into how you operate and how you plan the vision. But now we want to dive deep into a fun segment, which is called the lightning round. I'm going to ask you 8 to 10 questions and expecting you to answer it quickly with a little bit of fire.
Love it. I'm ready.
Let's see.
I'm ready. Okay.
All right. Let's get started. So, first question. If you weren't in the tech industry, what completely different career would you be pursuing?
Talk show host.
I love it. I think you'll be really good at it. If you could have an AI handle one aspect of your daily routine, what would it be and why?
It's not daily, it's weekly, but expense reports. Easy.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
Yeah, that's a good one. What's a tech trend you think is overhyped and one tech trend which is underhyped?
Well, I think it's kind of it's starting to slip, but I think blockchain and or crypto is overhyped.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And sorry, what was the other part of the question?
And one which you feel is underhyped.
AI.
You think it's underhyped? Wow. Yeah.
100%. I think that we humans have no idea what we've created yet.
Agreed. Yeah. True. What inspires you more? Is it a riveting book or a thought-provoking podcast or any engaging conversation?
Conversation with really smart people.
Yeah.
That's dopamine hits all day long.
Yeah, it's like mental stimulation. Yeah.
Yep.
The biggest risk you've taken in your career or your personal life that has paid off?
Leaving the comfortable confines of SAP.
Yeah.
I was a president at SAP, amazing team, big business unit. Leaving that, and I'm not going to call it a cushy job because it wasn't that at all.
Yeah.
But to go take a first-time CEO role
Yes.
at the time Marketo that was being taken private and was kind of struggling.
Right.
Big risk.
Yeah, and that definitely paid off. We all know that.
It worked out.
Yeah. What's one daily habit you swear by that contributes to your productivity or your success? It could be more than one.
Meet a new person every day.
Yeah. Wow, you try to do that?
100%. I've reached my LinkedIn max connections at 30,000, so I need them to fix that. And people will, I'm sure someone will be like, oh, Steve, that's volume, not value. But if you go a full day without reaching out to someone you don't know, just try and establish, think about how the brain not just survives, but thrives, right?
Right.
It's neurons and synapses creating new connections constantly that form memories that create insight. But if you as a person, if you're not doing that, how are you thriving?
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, I will try to follow that. It's a hard one to follow though.
Well, start with every week. How's that?
Yeah. Incremental. What's one bold prediction you have about the future of AI that might sound crazy now, but it's going to happen, you feel?
In 24 months, we will have the first blockbuster video victim of AI.
24 months. Yeah. Yeah, I can believe that. I can see that happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
It will happen. The next blockbuster is out there, and it's because of AI.
Yeah.
And they don't know it yet.
Yeah. That was great. Those were all my questions. It was really fun to know your fun side and your prediction of what the future looks like. Before we wrap up, do you have any parting thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Well, obviously, I mean, first of all, I'm excited about your leadership in this category, first and foremost. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And it's a pleasure and an honor to be a guest of yours. My parting thoughts are simply like, we here at Boomi, we exist to make people's lives better. That's why we're here, to make your job easier by getting systems to talk to each other, making apps and data and APIs, malleable components that you can create breakthroughs with. So we would obviously love the opportunity to do that with any one of the companies that you work for people that are listening. But just an absolute pleasure to be a guest of yours. Thank you.
Absolutely. The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much.